Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and it has been a minute, hasn't it? I had to put a lot of projects on hold after an injury. Stairs were forbidden, but shopping wasn't, and during a recent trip to Daiso, I found this dome mold that's perfect for a project I've been wanting to do for ages. I'll share all the details of what happened and what I've been up to in the meantime in a different video. For now, I really just want to get to the part where I get this mold out of the package and get started. As an aside, all the stuff I get at Daiso has the cutest little backer cards, and I always end up saving these to make tiny bookmarks and page tabs for my planner. So cute. So these little ones down here at the bottom are what I'm going to use to make some special eyes for Tahl. I have one of the heads I sculpted and cast here to measure the eyes, and it's 10 millimeters wide, so it's going to be one of these two down here. This will take a little experimentation, but I'm just glad to be back in my studio after weeks of not even seeing my dolls. I've printed some iris designs on thick printer paper, and you can see I printed some for Rune too because he always gets something when I make stuff. I'll be using the green ones for Tahl, and again I printed in two sizes because I'm not sure which one will work. I'll be making the eye with clear UV resin. I found this bottle of Magic Gloss doming resin in my drawer, and man, was that a throwback. I don't know if they even make this anymore. I also don't know if it's still good, so I'll be sticking to the other bottle which I got at the craft store and I know is still good. Brand doesn't really matter, it just needs to be hard type UV resin. I'll fill up these two molds to check the size, making sure not to get any bubbles in the resin. So I know I've said before that I don't really like making eyes, but ever since I made Tahl, I've wanted him to have eyes that follow the camera. There's a company that makes doll eyes that track, and they're really cheap, but they use stolen designs for their eyes, and I didn't want to pay for something they didn't create. So I figured they're easy enough. It's just an optical illusion of a flat image on the back of a clear dome. I'll just make my own. These go into cure, and then I can test the irises and sizes. In the past, when I've printed eye chips, I've needed to either paint them with a sealant or apply packing tape to keep the ink from bleeding. But I recently got a laser printer for business purposes, and while the colors aren't as vibrant, the toner is waterproof, so these will be a lot easier to work with. I thought the eyes would still be tacky and I could just press these on and finish curing them, but it's fully cured after only 5 seconds in the light, so I'll have to figure out something else. Right away I can see the larger iris won't work because somehow I didn't consider that the resin dome would magnify it and make it look larger, so I'll have to use the smaller iris for sure. It magnifies the smaller iris to look the size of the larger one, so I'll just have to work with that. But now I have to figure out how to stick the paper on the back of the eye. The pink thing is a silicone mat I put down to protect the table. I figured I could probably just use more resin to glue the dome onto the iris, so I add a drop and then carefully put the dome on and shift it around until it's fairly centered. It's hard to tell if it is centered because of how the eye tracks, but this works fine to cure the paper onto the back of the eye. I start with the smaller 10mm dome and trim off the paper. It looks pretty good, but there's a little bit of a gap at the edges, so I think he'll need the larger size. I tried to do this one the same way, but I didn't realize the resin would shrink when it hardened, so there's a hollow in the backside where it catches air and makes bubbles. So I make a new dome, making sure the mold is brimming, so it should be even on the back when cured. This one made a bubble, so I have to remove that before I can cure it. I just suck it out of the resin with the end of a popsicle stick. Then I decided to go ahead and make the eye with the paper cured onto the back. This worked out really well. No bubbles, nice and clear, mostly centered, so I'll just repeat that for the second eye. These turned out fabulous, but I did notice that in spite of curing hard, the resin gets hazy if I touch it, no matter how long I let it cure. So I figure I'll solve that with a top coat of hard acrylic gloss. This one is really thick, but also pretty self-leveling, so I coat it and let it dry for a few hours, which was not enough because of how humid it is here, so I ended up sticking my finger in the gloss while it was still tacky. That's okay though, if it's still tacky, I can wipe it all off with water and try again. I have a Liquitex gloss varnish that isn't as hard, but it does better in high humidity. It's funny because the matte varnish doesn't do well in humidity, but I guess that's why we experiment. The Liquitex is not self-leveling, so in order to get a smooth, bubble-free coating, I drip the gloss over the eyes and then wick up the extra liquid with a bit of paper towel. This worked pretty well, but the paper is a little translucent from being cured into the resin, so I'll finish these eyes by painting the backs with white acrylic paint. One is already trimmed and the other isn't, but order doesn't seem to matter for this, and the untrimmed one is easier to paint. I let these dry overnight, and wow, the difference between the painted and unpainted eyes is pretty big. And now I can trim these up, and it looks like these eyes are ready to go. They fit without gaps, so it's time to try them into my actual painted doll head. Here he's wearing some resin eyes I made previously using the same irises, but the old ones were printed on photo paper with a regular inkjet printer. They're definitely brighter than the laser prints, but I didn't feel like fighting extra materials, so oh well. And once the eyes are in the doll, they track beautifully. Now no matter where I am, it'll look like my sneaky thief is watching me. These eyes still aren't quite perfect. They're a little too deep of a dome, so the iris disappears from some angles, and he looks a little cross-eyed straight on. But I can solve that pretty easily by pouring a new pair and only filling the mold part way. Overall, this experiment proved really easy. And even though I don't love making doll eyes, I had a good time making these, and I'm looking forward to adjusting until they're the perfect depth and fit. And that's all for today though. Thanks for watching. Bye.